The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive crystal dome. Inside, beings from 47 different worlds sat in floating chairs that moved through the air like gentle clouds. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others breathed methane gas through tubes connected to their chairs. A few looked almost like humans, except their skin was blue or green or covered in scales. Elder Zixithara stood at the center podium. Her body looked like it was made of living glass with light dancing inside her crystal form. She was old, very old. Her people, the Vorthok, had been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. When she spoke, everyone listened because she had seen things that others could only imagine. But today, her voice shook with something the council had never heard before. Fear. "My friends," she began, her crystal body flashing bright red with worry, "I bring news that will change everything we know about the galaxy. A new species has learned to travel faster than light. They call themselves humans." A low murmur went through the hall. New species were rare. Most civilizations took thousands of years to develop space travel. The process required careful study, perfect engineering, and years of testing. There were rules about these things. Procedures that kept everyone safe. "These humans," Zixithara continued, "they are different, very different. I have watched them for 3 months now. What I have seen makes no sense." She waved her hand and a large screen appeared in the air above the council. The image showed a human spacecraft floating in the darkness of space. It looked rough, like someone had built it in their backyard using spare parts. Compared to the sleek, perfect ships that filled the council's fleets, the human vessel seemed almost primitive. "This is their ship called New Horizon," Zixithara explained. 3 weeks ago, I watched their faster-than-light engine break down in the middle of space. Their situation was desperate. By all our calculations, they should have died." The council members leaned forward in their floating chairs. Ship breakdowns in deep space were serious business. Most species had detailed emergency procedures that took days to complete. Rescue ships, careful diagnostics, and precise repairs using the finest tools available. "What did they do?" asked Representative Glurp from the Zenthari Collective. His people were known for their careful, methodical approach to everything. They never acted without a plan. Zixithara's crystal form flickered with what could only be described as confusion. Their engineer, a female named Lisa Hayes, hit the engine with a metal tool called a wrench. She hit it 17 times, then the engine started working again. Silence filled the great hall. Several council members looked at each other with expressions of disbelief. The idea of fixing a faster-than-light engine by hitting it seemed impossible. These engines were the most complex machines in the galaxy. They required perfect calibration and delicate handling. "Surely you must be mistaken," said war leader Threx of the Mandorians. His warrior people understood machinery and weapons better than most. No faster-than-light engine could survive such treatment. "I watched it happen," Zixithara insisted. But that was not the strangest part. When the wrench method stopped working, Engineer Hayes used something called duct tape to hold broken pieces together. Then she mixed coffee grounds with engine coolant and poured the mixture into the quantum manifold. The hall erupted in shocked gasps. Using food products in a quantum manifold was not just wrong, it was dangerous. It could cause explosions that would destroy entire solar systems. "The engine worked perfectly," Zixithara continued. "In fact, it worked better than before. They traveled faster than any ship I have ever seen." Captain Jake Morrison had been leading the human mission. Zixithara had observed him carefully. He was young for a ship captain, maybe 30 years old. Most species did not trust important missions to anyone under 200 years old. Yet Morrison commanded his crew with easy confidence. During the engine crisis, Morrison had remained calm. While his engineer hit things with wrenches and poured coffee into delicate machinery, he ate something called pizza and told jokes to keep everyone's spirits up. When the repairs were finished, he celebrated by playing loud music and dancing with his crew. "They treat space travel like a game," Zixithara said, her voice filled with wonder and concern. "They laugh at dangers that would terrify experienced captains. Yesterday, I watched them navigate through an asteroid field while playing a card game called poker. Dr. Amy Walsh, the expedition's scientist, had particularly puzzled the ancient observer. While studying a strange energy field that could have killed them all, Walsh had taken samples by literally sticking her hand into the dangerous phenomenon. When asked why she did not use proper scientific instruments, she had said, "This seemed faster." The energy field had not harmed her. Instead, it had somehow made their ship's shields stronger. "Nothing they do follows standard procedures," Zixthera explained. Yet everything they attempt succeeds. They solve problems that should take months in just minutes. They make friends with hostile species by offering them food. They fix broken technology by hitting it or using tape. Representative Misrlox of the academic Sophian order stood up on his four legs.
His people valued knowledge above all else.
Elder Zixthera, with respect you describe coincidences and luck. No species can advance to interstellar travel without proper scientific method. That is what I thought too, Zixthera replied. So I studied their history. These humans achieved faster than light travel in less than 100 years after they invented flying machines. Most species take 10,000 years to make that same journey. She showed more images on the screen. Pictures of human history, their wars, their discoveries, their rapid advancement from primitive hunters to space travelers. They are impossibly fast learners, she continued. But more than that, they seem to thrive on challenges that would destroy other species. When something goes wrong, they become more determined, not less. When experts tell them something is impossible, they find a way to do it anyway. The council chamber filled with nervous chatter. Some members laughed at the stories, thinking they were exaggerated. Others looked worried, wondering what it meant for the galaxy to have such an unpredictable new species. I believe, Zixthera concluded, that we are about to meet a species that will change everything we think we know about the universe. They are coming to make contact with us, and I fear that we are not prepared for what that will mean. The great crystal dome fell silent as the council members considered her words. Outside the station's windows, stars twinkled peacefully in the darkness. None of them yet knew that somewhere among those distant lights a human ship was already heading their way, probably held together with duct tape and powered by coffee. 3 weeks passed after Elder Zixthera's warning to the Galactic Council. The ancient being had tried to prepare everyone for humanity's arrival, but her fellow council members had mostly ignored her concerns. They thought she was being too careful, maybe even a little paranoid in her old age. The council had spent those 3 weeks preparing for first contact with the humans. They created detailed ceremonies that would last for 5 days. There were proper greetings to learn, formal speeches to memorize, and specific clothes to wear. Everything had to be perfect according to thousands of years of diplomatic tradition. Galactic Station Prime had been cleaned until it sparkled. The main docking bay was decorated with flowers from 30 different worlds. Translators practiced their most polite phrases. Cooks prepared foods that would be safe for the new species to eat, even though no one knew what humans actually ate. Ambassador Krelvex of the Peaceful Altarian Federation had been chosen to lead the welcome ceremony. He was famous for his perfect manners and his ability to make everyone feel comfortable. His speech of welcome was 47 pages long and covered every important point of galactic law and custom. On the morning the humans were supposed to arrive, every council member put on their finest formal robes. The great ceremonial hall had been set up with raised platforms, special lighting, and ancient music that was supposed to show respect for important occasions. Then the humans arrived. The first sign that things would not go as planned came when their ship, New Horizon, docked at the station. Instead of the careful, slow approach that proper protocol required, Captain Jake Morrison brought his ship in fast and hard. The docking clamps engaged with a loud bang that shook the entire station. "Well, that was fun," came Morrison's voice over the communication system. "Hope we didn't break anything important." Ambassador Krelvex straightened his formal robes and took his position at the head of the welcoming committee. Behind him stood representatives from dozens of species, all wearing their most impressive ceremonial outfits. They waited in perfect silence for the humans to emerge from their ship. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Krelvex stepped forward, ready to begin his carefully prepared speech. But the words died in his throat when he saw what walked through those doors. A human female in simple blue pants and a shirt with words printed on it strolled into the ceremonial hall. Her name tag read Kate Phillips, Earth Ambassador. But instead of the flowing robes that every ambassador wore for formal occasions, she looked like she was dressed for a casual day at home. Behind her came Lieutenant Ben Carter, who was making loud popping sounds with something in his mouth while pointing a small device around the room and making clicking noises. "Hey there," Ambassador Phillips said cheerfully to the assembled crowd of alien dignitaries. "Nice place you got here. Very shiny. Mind if we skip the formal stuff? We brought barbecue." The carefully rehearsed welcome ceremony collapsed in the first 30 seconds. Ambassador Krelvik stood frozen, his 47-page speech still clutched in his tentacles, while Phillips walked past him toward the buffet tables that had been set up with traditional galactic foods. "This looks interesting," she said, picking up something that resembled a crystal fruit. "What's it taste like? Actually, never mind. Let's see what we brought." She waved toward the airlock and more humans began streaming into the hall. They carried boxes and coolers and something that looked suspiciously like cooking equipment. Captain Morrison appeared carrying what he called a portable grill and began looking around for a place to set it up. "Jake Morrison," he introduced himself to anyone who would listen. "Nice to meet you all. Where can I plug this in?" Engineer Lisa Hayes had somehow convinced the station's computer systems to change the lighting and background music. Instead of the solemn, respectful atmosphere that had taken weeks to arrange, the hall now felt like an outdoor party on a summer evening. "How did she access our environmental controls?" whispered Station Commander Yixtel to his assistant. "Those systems require level 10 clearance." "She asked the computer nicely," came the reply. "It just did what she wanted." Dr. Amy Walsh had found the Glorthian delegation and was enthusiastically discussing something with them through the universal translators. The Glorthians breathed methane and lived in a high-pressure environment. They had never been able to share meals with other species. "So you cook your food in methane gas?" Walsh was saying. "That's amazing. We cook ours over fire. Same basic idea, right? Want to try some of our hamburgers? I bet we could figure out a way to make them methane safe." The impossible conversation continued as the human doctor somehow managed to make the methane-breathing aliens feel like old friends. Within an hour, the formal diplomatic reception had turned into something the humans called a cookout. Captain Morrison had set up his grill in the middle of the ceremonial hall and was cooking meat over an open flame. The smell filled the air, making some species very interested and others slightly sick. Lieutenant Carter had taught several young aliens how to play something called frisbee, using ceremonial plates from the buffet. The ancient, priceless dishes sailed through the air while their creators watched in horror. "This is chaos," Representative Glurp whispered to his neighbor. "They're treating our most sacred diplomatic traditions like a children's party." But even as he complained, Glurp found himself laughing when Ambassador Phillips handed him something called a hot dog and insisted he try it. The food was completely wrong for his digestive system, yet somehow it tasted wonderful. Elder Zixithera watched from the observation deck above the main hall. She had predicted this chaos, but even she was surprised by how quickly the humans had turned formal diplomacy into a friendly gathering. Engineer Hayes had wandered off from the party and somehow ended up in the station's maintenance section. The artificial gravity generator had been acting up for weeks, requiring constant adjustments by teams of skilled technicians. Hayes looked at the massive, complex machine for about 5 minutes. Then she kicked it in exactly the right spot. The gravity fluctuations that had been bothering the station for months immediately stopped. "How did you know where to kick it?" asked Chief Engineer Norbex, who had spent his entire career studying gravitational systems. "It was making a weird humming sound," Hayes explained. "When machines hum like that, they usually need a good kick. Works on cars, should work on gravity machines too." Back in the main hall, the party was getting louder and more chaotic by the minute. Someone had started playing human music, and several aliens were attempting to dance to rhythms their species had never heard before. Ambassador Phillips found herself surrounded by curious council members who wanted to know more about Earth and its people. Instead of giving formal presentations about human government and culture, she told funny stories about her childhood and showed pictures of her pet cat. "You keep small predators in your homes?" asked Counselor Vithras of the prey species Hebrani Federation. "Oh yeah, cats are great," Phillips replied. "They're furry and they purr when they're happy. Look, here's a video of mine chasing a laser pointer." As the evening continued, the humans managed to break every rule of proper diplomacy while somehow making friends with everyone they met. They ignored formal procedures, disrupted carefully planned ceremonies, and treated ancient customs like suggestions. Yet by the end of the night, even the most traditional council members found themselves enjoying the strange, chaotic party. The humans had a gift for making everyone feel welcome and included. even when they were completely ignoring established protocols. Elder Zixithara continued watching from above, her crystal form flickering with mixed emotions. The humans were exactly as unpredictable as she had warned. But watching the joy on the faces of her fellow council members, she began to wonder if unpredictable might not be such a bad thing after all. 2 months after the humans arrived at Galactic Station Prime, the galaxy faced its worst crisis in over 1,000 years. The Kethmori had returned. The Kethmori were an ancient insectoid species that had disappeared from known space centuries ago. They were warriors who lived only for conquest and destruction. Their ships were black and angular like flying knives made of metal and malice. For reasons no one understood, they had decided to come back and destroy everything in their path. They had already wiped out 3 entire star systems. Billions of beings were dead. Their weapons were unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The Kethmori used something called quantum disruptors that could tear apart the basic building blocks of matter itself. War leader Threx of the Mandorian Empire stood before the emergency council session. His people were the galaxy's greatest warriors, but even Threx looked worried as he pointed to the holographic battle map floating above the council floor. The Kethmori fleet consists of 47 capital ships, he explained. Each one is equipped with quantum shielding that adapts to any weapon we fire at it. Our missiles become useless after the first shot. Our energy beams are absorbed and redirected back at us. The map showed red dots representing Kethmori ships, slowly moving toward the Council's core worlds. Blue dots showed the combined fleets of the Galactic Alliance trying to stop them. The blue dots kept disappearing. How long do we have? Asked Chancellor Morvex, the Council's current leader. 6 months, maybe less, Threx replied grimly. Our best military strategists are working on a solution, but the quantum shielding technology is beyond anything we understand. It may take years to develop an effective counterattack. The Great Hall fell silent. Years meant that entire civilizations would be destroyed. While they tried to find an answer, some council members began talking quietly about evacuation plans and which worlds might be defendable. Then a voice came from the back of the hall. We'll handle it. Everyone turned to see Colonel Danny Rodriguez, Earth's military representative. He was a quiet man who usually sat in the back during council meetings, taking notes and asking occasional questions. Most council members had barely noticed him before. Excuse me, said Threx, not sure he had heard correctly. Colonel Rodriguez stood up and walked toward the front of the hall. He moved with the easy confidence that all humans seemed to share, as if the impossible was just another day at the office. The Kethmori, Rodriguez said simply. We'll take care of them. War leader Threx's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. Colonel, with respect, your species has been in space for less than a year. The Kethmori have technology that has defeated our combined fleets, ships that have been fighting battles for thousands of years. Rodriguez shrugged. Yeah, but we've got something they don't expect. And what is that? We're really good at making stuff up as we go along. Before anyone could ask what that meant, Rodriguez was talking into a small communication device. Hey Pete, bring the big one. We've got bugs to squash. The council members looked at each other in confusion. Threx activated his own communication system to track human ship movements. What he saw made his compound eyes widen in disbelief. A human vessel was approaching the station, but calling it a ship was generous. It looked like someone had taken a large asteroid, strapped massive engines to one end, and painted the whole thing in green and brown camouflage patterns. Weapons stuck out from its surface at random angles. The name painted on its side read, USS Democracy. Captain Pete Jackson docked his unusual vessel with more skill than anyone expected from such an odd-looking ship. He joined Colonel Rodriguez in the council chamber, along with engineer Lisa Hayes and Dr. Amy Walsh, who had apparently been promoted to Chief Tactical Officer for reasons no one could explain. So, Captain Jackson said, looking at the holographic battle map, big scary bugs with adaptive shields. Got it. Amy, you still got that special sauce we cooked up last month? Dr. Walsh grinned. Oh yeah, we've got plenty of special sauce. War leader Threx tried to maintain his patience. Captain Jackson, perhaps you could explain your battle strategy? The Kethmori quantum shields can adapt to any known weapon technology. Right, Jackson nodded. Good thing we're not using known weapon technology. He gestured to Engineer Hayes, who began pulling items out of what appeared to be a large trash bag. Old tires, broken kitchen appliances, expired food containers, and various pieces of junk that looked like they had been collected from Earth's garbage dumps. "This is your secret weapon?" Threx asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "See the way we figure it," explained Dr. Walsh. "Their shields are designed to adapt to weapons. Energy beams, missiles, plasma cannons, all that high-tech stuff. But what happens when you shoot them with garbage?" Colonel Rodriguez activated the tactical display and showed the Council their battle plan. It was elegantly simple. The USS Democracy would fly straight at the Kethmori fleet while broadcasting human music across all communication frequencies. When the enemy ships raised their quantum shields, the humans would fire their special sauce at them. "This is madness," declared Admiral Vextar of the Sophian Defense Force. "You cannot defeat a space fleet with refuse and music." "Sure we can," Captain Jackson replied cheerfully. "Want to bet?" 3 days later, the human plan went into action. The USS Democracy approached the Kethmori fleet with all the subtlety of a meteor impact. They were playing something called Ride of the Valkyries at maximum volume, the music echoing across space on every communication channel. The Kethmori commander, a massive insectoid creature named Hive Master Clixthera, watched the approaching ship with confusion. In all his centuries of conquest, no enemy had ever attacked while playing music. "Raise quantum shields," he ordered. "Analyze their weapon signatures." The shields activated, creating a shimmering barrier around each Kethmori ship. The defensive systems began scanning for incoming energy weapons, preparing to adapt and absorb whatever the humans fired at them. Then Dr. Walsh fired the special sauce. Thousands of pieces of Earth garbage erupted from the USS Democracy's cargo bays. Old tires spun through space alongside broken refrigerators, expired pizza boxes, used car parts, and banana peels. The quantum shields, designed to handle the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, had no programming for dealing with literal trash. The garbage hit the Kethmori ships like a slow-motion meteor shower. Tires bounced off windshields. Refrigerators clogged engine vents. Pizza boxes stuck to sensor arrays. The expired food began emitting gases that interfered with the ship's life support systems. "Shields are not responding," reported a Kethmori technician. "The defensive matrix cannot analyze organic waste products." "Then clear it manually," Hive Master Clixthera ordered. But before the Kethmori could react, Engineer Hayes activated the second part of the plan. Hidden among the garbage were thousands of small devices that began broadcasting Earth's most annoying commercial. Jingles on every frequency the insectoids used for communication. The proud warrior fleet that had terrorized the galaxy suddenly found itself unable to see, breathe, or communicate properly while being bombarded with advertisements for hamburgers and car insurance. Within 6 hours, the entire Kethmori fleet was drifting helplessly in space, their crews too busy trying to clear garbage from their ships to fight back. Captain Jackson opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. "This is the USS Democracy to Kethmori ships. You're beaten. Want to surrender? Or should we send over some more special sauce?" The surrender came 20 minutes later. Back at Galactic Station Prime, the Council watched the battle reports in stunned silence. Humanity had defeated the galaxy's greatest threat using garbage and music. The impossible had become routine. Elder Zixthera observed the celebrating humans and finally understood what made them so dangerous. They did not just think outside the box. They did not even know there was supposed to be a box. After the humans defeated the Kethmori with garbage and music, their reputation in the galaxy changed completely. What had started as amusing stories about their strange methods became serious attention from every major civilization. Everyone wanted to understand how this young species could solve problems that had baffled experts for centuries. The requests for human help began arriving daily at Galactic Station Prime. Some were small problems that local governments could not solve. Others were massive crises that threatened entire star systems. In every case, the humans approached each challenge with the same casual confidence that had marked their first appearance. The plague crisis on Xerion Prime was the first test after their military victory. The disease had appeared 6 months earlier and was spreading through the population faster than medical teams could contain it. The virus attacked the nervous systems of 17 different species, causing paralysis and death within days of infection. Dr. Marcus Webb arrived from Earth with a medical team of 12 humans. They were met at the spaceport by Dr. Lillian Kaur, the planet's chief medical officer, who had been fighting the plague since it began. "Dr. Webb," she said, her 6 arms gesturing frantically, "we have lost over 2 million people to this plague. Our best scientists cannot find a cure. The virus mutates faster than we can develop treatments. We have tried everything." Dr. Webb looked around the medical facility, noting the sophisticated equipment and detailed research protocols. Everything was perfectly organized and scientifically sound. Teams of experts worked day and night, following proper procedures and careful methodologies. "Have you tried getting sick?" Webb asked. Dr. Core's antennae twitched in confusion. "Excuse me?" "Getting sick," Webb repeated. "You know, catching the disease on purpose. Sometimes the best way to understand something is to experience it yourself." The alien medical team stared at him in horror. Deliberately exposing themselves to a deadly plague went against every principle of safe medical research. It was dangerous, illogical, and completely irresponsible. Dr. Webb was already rolling up his sleeve. "Don't worry, I brought some earth-cold medicine. Might help." Before anyone could stop him, Webb had exposed himself to a sample of the plague virus. Within hours, he was showing symptoms of the disease. Dr. Core and her team prepared for the worst, expecting to watch the human doctor die from his reckless experiment. Instead, Webb's symptoms disappeared after 2 days. His earth-cold virus, which he had been fighting off when he arrived, had somehow neutralized the alien plague. The 2 diseases had attacked each other instead of their host. "Your common cold cured the plague?" Dr. Core asked in disbelief. "Looks that way," Webb replied, sniffling slightly. "Want me to sneeze on some of your samples?" "Might speed up the process." Within a week, the plague that had killed millions was completely eliminated. The solution was so simple that most medical experts refused to believe it had worked. But the results spoke for themselves. The next crisis came from the Outer Rim territories, where the ancient Nexus Gate network had mysteriously failed. The gates were massive structures that allowed instant travel between distant star systems. They had been built by a long-dead civilization and had worked perfectly for over 10,000 years. Now, suddenly, they had all stopped functioning at once. Thousands of ships were stranded across the galaxy, unable to return home. Trade had collapsed, and some isolated colonies were running out of essential supplies. Engineer Lisa Hayes arrived at the primary Nexus control station with a team of human technicians. They were greeted by Chief Engineer Vorthak Nimtel, whose people had maintained the gate network for 3 millennia. "Engineer Hayes," Nimtel said, his crystalline form flickering with stress, "we have run complete diagnostics on all primary systems. The quantum entanglement matrices are stable. The power cores are functioning at optimal levels. Yet the gates will not activate. We cannot find the problem." Hayes looked at the control room, which was filled with monitors showing complex data streams and energy readings. Hundreds of Vorthak technicians worked at control stations, their crystal bodies glowing as they processed vast amounts of information. "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" Hayes asked. The question caused a moment of complete silence in the control room. Nimtel's form flashed through several colors before settling on a confused purple. "I do not understand," he said carefully. "The Nexus network has been operational for 10,000 years. We do not simply turn it off." "Sure you do," Hayes replied. "When something electronic stops working, you unplug it for a few minutes, then plug it back in. Works every time." She walked over to what appeared to be the main control console and began looking for something that resembled a power switch. The Vorthak engineers watched in growing alarm as she approached systems that had never been touched by anyone except the most senior technicians. "Please stop," Nimtel said nervously. "That console controls the fundamental quantum frequencies for the entire network. If you disrupt those settings, it could take decades to recalibrate." Hayes found what she was looking for, a large crystal that pulsed with energy at the center of the console. "This looks like the main power source," she said, reaching for it. "No, wait." Several Vorthak engineers cried at once. Hayes pulled the crystal out of its socket. Every monitor in the control room went dark. The humming sound that had filled the station for thousands of years suddenly stopped. Emergency lighting activated, casting eerie shadows throughout the facility. "Now we wait," Hayes said calmly, checking her watch. "Give it about 5 minutes." The 5 minutes felt like hours to the Vorthak engineers. They had never seen their ancient technology completely shut down. Some of them began calculating how long it would take to rebuild the entire network from scratch. Hayes put the crystal back into its socket. Every system in the control room came back online immediately. The monitors lit up with normal readings. The familiar humming sound resumed, and across the galaxy, Nexus gates that had been silent for weeks suddenly started working again. "How did you know that would work?" Nimtel asked, his crystal form now a bright, happy yellow. "Computers are basically the same everywhere," Hayes replied with a shrug. "When they freeze up, you restart them. Simple." The humans continued solving impossible problems with ridiculous ease. When the pirate fleets of the Scorpion Nebula threatened major shipping routes, Captain Jake Morrison simply flew out to meet them. Instead of fighting, he convinced the pirates to become independent security contractors for the merchant vessels they had been robbing. "Think about it," Morrison had told Pirate King Razak the Destroyer. "You already know which ships carry the most valuable cargo. Instead of stealing it, why not get paid to protect it?" Within a month, the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy had become the most reliable security force. They still got to fly fast ships and carry big weapons, but now they were paid legally and treated like heroes instead of outlaws. When two species called the Hegemony and the Coalition had been at war for 3,000 years over territorial disputes, Ambassador Kate Phillips ended the conflict during a single dinner party. She got both sets of leaders drunk on Earth whiskey and made them realize they both loved the same human television show. "You guys have been fighting over who gets to control star systems," she told them as they argued about their favorite characters. "But you're missing all the good TV shows. How about we set up a cultural exchange program instead?" The peace treaty was signed the next morning, though both sides later claimed they could not remember exactly how the negotiations had proceeded. Each human success seemed more impossible than the last. They fixed problems that had stumped experts for generations. They ended conflicts that had raged for millennia. They made friends with enemies and turned disasters into opportunities. The galaxy began to depend on them. When something seemed impossible, the standard response became, "Call the humans." They would probably figure it out somehow, even if no one could predict how they would do it. Elder Zix Thera continued to observe and document their methods, but she had stopped trying to warn the Council about humanity's unpredictable nature. Her fellow Council members had moved past amusement to genuine appreciation for the humans' unique approach to problem-solving. The only question that remained was what would happen when the humans were officially invited to join the Galactic Council as full members. Would they follow established procedures and diplomatic protocols, or would they treat interstellar government the same way they treated everything else, as just another problem to solve with creativity, friendship, and maybe some duct tape? Elder Zix Thera suspected she already knew the answer. The Great Council Assembly happened only once every 50 years. It was the most important gathering in the galaxy, where representatives from hundreds of civilizations came together to make decisions that would affect billions of lives. The ancient ceremonial hall on the neutral world of Harmony Station could hold over 1,000 delegates, and every seat was filled. Today's assembly had a special purpose: to vote on whether humanity should be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. It was an unprecedented situation. No species had ever been considered for membership after less than 1 year in space. The usual process took decades of careful evaluation and testing, but the humans had proven themselves in ways that defied all previous experience. They had ended wars, stopped plagues, and defeated enemies that had threatened the entire galaxy. Their methods were strange, and their logic was often impossible to follow, but their results spoke for themselves. Elder Zix Thera stood at the great podium one final time, her crystal form reflecting the light from 1,000 worlds. Around her, the assembled delegates waited to hear her final report on the humans before the official vote began. "Fellow members of the Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast hall, "for over a year now, I have studied the species called humanity. I have watched them accomplish the impossible on a regular basis. Today I will tell you the truth about why they succeed where others fail." The hall fell silent. Everyone knew that Elder Zix Thera had been humanity's most persistent critic in the early days. Her warnings about their chaotic methods had been proven both right and wrong in equal measure. "The humans are not like us," she continued. "When our species encounter a problem, we first study what has been tried before. We learn from the failures of others. We understand the limitations before we attempt solutions. This is wisdom. This is how civilizations survive and grow." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. This was how things were supposed to work. Careful planning, thorough research, and respectful attention to established procedures. Humans do the opposite, Zixithera said, her crystal form flickering with what might have been amusement. They attempt solutions first and discover limitations later. They ignore the wisdom of experts and treat impossible problems as simple puzzles to solve. On the observation deck above the main hall, the human delegation watched the proceedings with typical casual interest. Ambassador Kate Phillips sat in a folding chair she had brought from their ship, eating something called popcorn from a paper bag. Captain Jake Morrison was quietly playing a card game with Dr. Amy Walsh while engineer Lisa Hayes sketched designs for what appeared to be improvements to the station's air recycling system. Dr. Walsh, Zixithera continued, cured a plague by deliberately infecting herself with it. Every medical expert in the galaxy said this was suicide. Yet she survived, and her Earth-cold virus eliminated a disease that had killed millions. The medical delegates in the audience shifted uncomfortably. The plague cure still made no sense to most scientists, but it had worked perfectly. Engineer Hayes repaired the Nexus Gate network by unplugging it and plugging it back in. 10,000 years of careful maintenance and complex diagnostics, and the solution was to restart the system like a broken kitchen appliance. Chief Engineer Nimtel's crystal form glowed bright yellow with embarrassment. His people were still trying to understand why such a simple action had fixed their ancient technology. Captain Morrison ended the pirate crisis by offering the criminals legitimate jobs. Thousands of years of military action had failed to stop them, but a simple conversation about career opportunities solved the problem in one afternoon. War leader Threx's mandibles clicked together. His warrior people were still adapting to the idea that the galaxy's most dangerous pirates were now its most reliable security guards. But these individual successes are not the real issue, Zixithera said, her voice growing more serious. The real issue is what these successes mean for our understanding of the universe itself. She gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the hall, showing human activities across the galaxy. Humans working alongside aliens, building things that should not work, solving problems that should be impossible. Every other species in the galaxy learns limitations first, she explained. We study what cannot be done before we attempt what can be done. Our children are taught to respect the impossible. Our scientists accept that some problems have no solutions. Our engineers understand that some repairs cannot be made. The audience nodded along. This was simply how rational beings approached the universe. There were laws of physics, limitations of technology, and boundaries that could not be crossed. Humans teach their children differently, Zixithera continued. They say it is only impossible until someone does it. They encourage their young to attempt things that experts say cannot be done. They treat the word impossible as a challenge rather than a warning. Ambassador Phillips looked up from her popcorn and grinned at Captain Morrison. She's got us figured out, she whispered. When humans encounter a problem, Zixithera said, they do not first ask, can this be solved? They ask, how can we solve this? The difference seems small, but it changes everything, she paused, letting the implications sink in throughout the Great Hall. They are unstoppable, she concluded, because they do not believe in being stopped. They succeed at impossible tasks because they do not accept that tasks are impossible. They make friends with enemies because they do not understand why anyone should remain an enemy. The hall erupted in a mixture of nervous laughter and thoughtful murmuring. Some delegates looked worried about having such an unpredictable species as full members. Others seemed fascinated by the implications of humanity's unique worldview. Representative Glurp from the Zinthari Collective stood up on his many legs. Elder Zixithera, are you recommending that we accept humanity as full council members? Zixithera's crystal form flickered through several colors before settling on a warm golden glow. I am recommending that we accept what we have already learned. The galaxy is not as predictable as we thought. Problems that we believe cannot be solved may simply require different kinds of thinking. She turned to look up at the human delegation in the observation deck. The humans have shown us that our universe is more flexible than we imagined. They have proven that friendship is stronger than conflict, that simple solutions often work better than complex ones, and that the impossible is usually just another word for, no one has tried it yet. Ambassador Phillips stood up in the observation deck and waved cheerfully at the assembled delegates. Thanks for having us, she called out. This has been fun. Oh, and we brought more barbecue if anyone wants some after the vote. The formal vote was called immediately. Representatives from hundreds of worlds pressed buttons on their voting devices, registering their decisions for the permanent record. The result was unanimous. Every single delegate voted to grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. As the Great Hall erupted in applause, Captain Morrison leaned over to Ambassador Phillips. "Should we tell them we're still making most of this up as we go along?" Phillips grinned and shook her head. "Nah, where's the fun in that? Besides, they're starting to figure it out anyway." Outside the great windows of Harmony Station, the USS Democracy hung in space like a happy accident. Its hull was still painted in camouflage patterns that made no sense in the vacuum of space. A hand-painted sign near the docking port read, "Earth or bust, mostly Earth." But now it was no longer just a human ship visiting alien space. It was the flagship of the galaxy's newest council members. Representing a species that had proven the impossible was just another day at the office. The humans had arrived in the galaxy barely 1 year ago. Held together by duct tape and powered by coffee, now they were full partners in an interstellar civilization that had existed for thousands of years. Before Earth had even developed agriculture. Elder Zixthera watched the celebration from her crystal podium and finally understood why she had been chosen to witness humanity's arrival. Someone needed to document the moment when the galaxy learned that its understanding of the universe had been far too limited. The humans had not just joined the Galactic Council. They had changed what it meant to be impossible. And the galaxy would never be quite the same, or quite as predictable, ever again. As the celebration continued into the night, with humans teaching aliens how to play something called karaoke, Elder Zixthera began composing her final report on humanity. It would be a very short report. Just one line. They are exactly as unstoppable as they believe themselves to be.